And welcome back. Just before we went on that break, we told you that we'll bring you Dr. Emmanuel Abusen, who is an agropreneur and also an agricultural integrity technologist. And he'll be talking to us this morning on the impact of a food market on the Nigerian economy. You're welcome to Signature Morning.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
All right, Dr. Emmanuel.
Thank you.
First, it's as if we're experiencing some form of food shortage in Nigeria right now with the flooding and what have you. Tell us, how has this affected Nigerian economy so far?
I think it's affected Nigerian economy in a very bad way. When you talk about food security for the people first, when you talk about food security, we're not just only talking about having enough to eat, we're also talking about having enough to spare, and also for exportation. But at the moment, because of the flood and other factors that have affected the market, that affected agriculture, causing market shock, has drastically affected our economy in terms of revenue generation, in terms of even having enough to consume as people. So we're in a very bad situation at the moment, and I think that was one of the things that led the president to declare a state of emergency on agriculture and seeing how they can boost this sector to be able to, first of all, talk about food sufficiency, food security. Then we can now also talk about exportation.
All right. Dr. Manuel, to a very large extent, we observe that a lot of investors are pulling out of the agricultural sector as it stands right now. Is there something we're not getting right within the agricultural space?
Yes. Since the oil boom of the 1970s, there are a lot of things that have affected the Nigerian agricultural value chain. In the agricultural value chain, we have the downstream and the upper stream. So before the oil boom, we're more concerned about the upper stream, which is the farmers and production. Now, when you look at the upper stream, it takes you to land. We are talking about food production itself, farming and all of that. Then when we want to talk about downstream, it's how we process this food to become consumables for the final consumers. So that is the downstream. So along the chain, when we had the oil boom, there were disruptions in our value chain, which is food production. Because what we're doing is agriculture. Now there's very between agriculture and food production. Food production is how we transform those raw materials into other byproducts, like granite to oil, granite oil, and other products that comes from it. So you take a critical look at the granite pyramid we have in Kano. What we had was granite pyramid. How are we transforming the granites to other value chains? So when the oil boom came, it was like there was no need to spend more time on the farm when we have excess proceeds coming from the oil. Then we got that value chain distorted, which has now been affecting us, that we cannot recover from the shock. Now, why are investors pulling out of Nigeria? We're not still getting it right. In terms of when you take a critical look at the farming ecosystem in Nigeria, we have over 60% of smallholder farmers producing over 90% of what we consume. The other large-scale farmers don't produce for the local market; they produce for export. That is for export for international market. Now, when you now take a look at how we fund these smallholder farmers, the funding is very risky to fund these smallholder farmers, especially that when you fund the smallholder farmers and you give them, you're funding them to give them productive credit. Now they convert this productive credit into consumption loans. And now when you consume productive credits, which are meant to be used for business, into consumption, you can't pay back those loans. So at the end of the day, you now have what we call loan defaults that affect in large scope other investments that come into this particular sector. Like we have risks in every business. It's the same way we have in agriculture. But we have not been able to mitigate those risks in terms of, one, clustering these farmers together to be able to fund them effectively and produce. And then it's hard for investors to keep investing where they know that their money is not coming out from. Now let's take a very critical look at the Anchors Barracks program. Over 1 trillion naira was invested in the scheme. We only had 600 million returning back. So this is risky for investors. That is why it is less than 4%, sometimes 5%, sometimes 10% investment that go towards agriculture. Not because agriculture is not profitable, but because we have not been able to recreate the agricultural ecosystem in Nigeria like other parts of the world.
Interesting. Emmanuel, at a point,
Yes.
during the formal administration of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the person of Additional, who happens to be the African Developmental Bank president right now, we saw a lot of agricultural boom in that sector. A lot of investment went into the agricultural sector. Right now, one state that I think in Nigeria is getting something right within the agricultural sector right now, I think it's Oyo State. They are doing a lot of things that has to do with agricultural support, especially by the governor. But looking at what Goodluck Ebele Jonathan did, former president of Nigeria, and what Makinde is currently doing in Oyo State, there tend to be a very big gap in terms of agricultural and state integration of agricultural processes. That is, most states right now tend to be very far from agricultural practice. And I'm asking, at what point did we miss it, knowing fully well that we are an agrarian society?
All right. So I really appreciate Adesina when he was the Minister of Agriculture, because he was the one that introduced the agricultural transformation agenda, ATA. And you started having agricultural development programs and programs all over the state. Every state had that component of the program. Now, the disconnect still remains that we are not investing in the right work frame.
All the states?
Yes, in terms of execution now.
Okay.
Now, we only have some states, like you mentioned, Oyo State, trying to do their bit in integrating, the agricultural ecosystem. We need to see it as an ecosystem, not just funding a particular component, for us to be able to see the results down from production, processing, and down to up to distribution. So once we're able to fund this particular process correctly, we might not be able to achieve the result we want to achieve. Then again, in terms of continuity, government should be government of continuity, regardless of any political party, especially when these programs are going to be of benefit to the public. Because you are serving the public, you are called a public servant. So each of these particular programs and projects are meant to be followed through in terms of execution. So why other states are not getting it rightly is they have not still seen the benefit of why it needs for them to fund the smallholder farmers effectively. Effective funding of smallholder farmers, who constitute over 60% of our farming population. So until they are well funded, until they are well organized, then again the empowerment of Farmers Association. If you see from All Farmers Association of Nigeria, one of the states that is highly structured in terms of effectiveness and delivery is Oyo State. So Farmers Association also contribute to the growth of agriculture. And until there are capacity buildings that are targeted to this particular population, we will not be able to have effectiveness in most of our programs and projects. So who are when we create programs and projects, we try to enforce it on the players. Now, farmers are the players in this too. They're also stakeholders, and we need to bring the farmers on the table. And bring them on the table is by their associations. Now, if we have a lot of fractions in the associations, so you have like All Farmers Association, for example, having 2-3 presidents, every of them are claiming that they are the rightful presidents. So it's hard for you to have a comprehensive workflow and work plan that guides us in delivery effectiveness. Because it's not about the government now, it's about the people. The government, they are not executioners. These are the people that are these are the foot soldiers that will make it. Government, for me, is not just about the people in Aso Rock or in people in government house. We are also government. The farmers are government. It's government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So all of us are players in this to make it work out. Now, when you now take a look at these particular projects or these programs, they have work plans, they have work frames, they have policies. How many of these leaders actually take their time to read them through? When I had my business experience one of my business experiences in Rwanda was taking some of the things, some of the Kogi State blueprint, the agricultural component, and then introduce it in Rwanda. And we were able to see some level of results, meaning we don't have policy problems in Nigeria. All we have is politics problem. Our policies are not the problem. It is the politics that is the problem.
Okay, politics problem.
So we don't have policy problem.
Okay.
We have politics problem. And until that is fixed, what are the politics problem? You see Farmers Association that are meant to be drivers of these particular policies. You see, I am the president, I'm the rightful president, you're not the rightful president, we take ourselves to court, there are fractions, everybody is doing their own. we can't have results. That is why it seems that some of these policies, like you mentioned, are not working. Everybody are players and everybody are stakeholders.
Again, there tends to be a lot of fraudulent activity within the agricultural ecosystem as it stands right now in Nigeria. Although you've mentioned quite a few of the associations so far, but then looking at all of these fraudulent activities that have tend to be piled up in the agriculture. You want to talk about it? So no, just want to know, with all of these, can this also be a reason why the agriculture cannot single-handedly support fund the Nigerian economy? Because agriculture has what it takes to sustain Nigerian economy.
Yes, let's take a look at Netherlands, New Zealand. Agriculture plays a very good role in revenue generation for their country. Why is ours not working? When we create institutions, we still take power out of those. We take our power out of their hand for effective delivery. Bank of Agriculture. Bank of Agriculture has the mandate to fund farming process in Nigeria. How is it funded? So when we talk about corruption, when we talk about corruption, what is corruption? It's clearly that the reason why we have corruption is, one, we don't even have data to back any of our budgeting. How do we budget what you don't know? In business, you make provisions, you make budgets based on data collected and predictions. We do what they call forecasting. So how do we forecast for a population we're not even sure of? Our data is not correct. How many farmers do we have? How many of these farmers have their profiling done properly? We had the business. We had an outreach in Taraba State, and I was surprised that an old man went into his room, went under his bed, and brought out 20 million naira cash. But when we are profiling them based on what we see, we call them smallholder farmers, and they are poor. But because they don't have their transactions recorded in the bank, does not mean they are poor. So we need to actually have data of these farmers who are making budgets for. So why money keep flying all around? Why there are many fraudulent activities? It's because there's no data to even back up what we have done. So we said there's a growth of 20% growth, as at against what? So that is one. Then number two, we need to start automating some processes. When the automations in processes, you see that the corruptions reduces, bottleneck reduces. We have a lot of bottlenecks in Nigeria, and bottlenecks now. I want to see. Let's say, for example, I want to see the minister. Then there's somebody I need to pay. I need to see that will make me now see the person that I need to see. All those lobbying and all around. These are the reasons why we have corruption. So we need to start automating processes to reduce human interactions. Then we interact more with technology. And now technology has come to make agriculture more robust and give us a frog leap. That we are here. We need to hop to the other stage. And in terms of speed, we need the speed as much as possible. So we need to use technology. Most of the technology we use in Nigeria are not even produced in Nigeria.
So Emmanuel, this is a very interesting conversation, but let me take you away from the conversation and bring you back to your personal life right now. I know it will take you by storm. I was doing a bit of research about your personality, and I realized you were one time funding the AgroVest project, and it was hijacked from you. And all of a sudden, right now, I think you're still trying to dot the I's and cross the T's. You want to talk to us about that story?
Okay. Yeah, when we talk about youth participation in agriculture, for me, I believe that the only way we can address food insecurity in Africa is when young people are participating. So we started as an agri-tech company where we provide digital solutions to farmers. And I felt like, okay, a lot of young people are not still seeing agriculture as something very interesting. Let's come together and create something that can engage them. You don't preach to young men to want to become a musician artist. You don't talk to them to become a movie star. They want to get it because they feel like those guys have a life that they want to emulate. It's easier. And what you see is what you want to become. When you talk about agriculture, we're more familiar with our parents in the village who are farmers. We see them with our hoe and cutlass. Why they are sending us to school, their parents that don't come and become like me. So we're not seeing agriculture as something that is entertaining or interesting. And until I started getting involved in agriculture, I saw that yes, this space has a whole lot of role to play to curtail unemployment, to boost our economy, and also give us the raw materials we need for our industrialization. Because you cannot talk about industrialization without a very a well integrated raw material. So we said, okay, I saw a lot of shows online. I said, okay, how do we integrate agriculture to create an edutainment program?
And bring us to that point where it was hijacked, and I was hijacked.
Yes. So, like I was talking, it's still about associations. So we partnered with, and again, these are some stories we don't want to talk about.
No, we need to hear that story, because I was doing the research and I found out that a young man introduced something that can revolutionize the agricultural sector, and he was kicked out of the scene. And I was like, okay, when you come on air, we'll have to share that story.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, we had partnership with All Farmers Association, led by Farouk Modi. We were to partner for the show. We shared the concept with them, and they felt like, wow, this is a very good concept that can actually bring limelight, agriculture to limelight, and also engage young people. So along the road, along the same, when money now gets involved, and for me, I want to make money, but I'm not in a hurry. We're trying to be very critical again about who are our partners, because these are what we want to preach to young people. So we now got to a point where money we're trying to be involved. We're now talking about this point of value. We're now looking at value. The company that is coming, what are their values? And how it's going to also affect us too, especially when we're trying to do something national. And there's a particular national body that we're already kicking against one of those sponsors that we're bringing on board. And I felt like I better align with the national body than this private entity. Because for us, it's about a national value we're trying to bring on board. And they felt like, it's like, I don't like money, and I was kicked out. Not because we don't like money, because of value. So they kicked me out. And when they wanted to, they actually make a caricature of themselves, of the whole thing. I want to also give a special thanks to Ahmed Issa, the ordinary president, who also stepped in and make sure that their project did not see the light of the day, not because he was trying to antagonize them, but he want us to do the right thing at the right time. So, and then we had a lot of back and front. We had to go on air, want to go to court. You're trying to fight for the life of what you have been betting since 2017. Betting the concept, bringing in people together, professionals, to script, to look at your review, and people are more interested about the benefits than the value we're trying to promote. And then we thank God. So lately we're already bringing in partners together again, and launching back.
Well, could your story be one of those reasons why a lot of youths don't want to go into agriculture, knowing that the more elderly people are taking over the scene, and they won't allow young people to come into the scene, and thereby affecting the growth of the agricultural sector and by extension the Nigerian economy?
Definitely. First of all, I talked about the politics problem, not just the policy problems. The Anchor Brass program, for example, how many young people benefited from it? The statistics are there. It is only them, because they have the access, they have the power, they have the contacts. What do we have? Idea. So when you have idea and there's no fuel, capital is a fuel. The reason why there's Signature TV was that there were people who were ready to make sure this thing works. As a young man, you can have the idea, and if you don't have the capital, it's just going to be an idea. So one of the big challenge is that an average young person who don't have a father, like in Nigeria is where they ask you, who is your father? As long as you don't have a father that is a big name, you will not be able to.
You mean like a godfather?
A godfather,
okay.
Or maybe your father is the father.
Like they used to say, the father is your father.
So you have to have someone that can open the door. There are doors that you need someone to open for you. You can keep knocking. Before I get in here, I needed someone to usher us in. So there must be somebody that can bring you in, even if you're going to be locked outside. Many of our young people are locked outside.
Mr. Manuel, just before we let you go at this point, let's talk about the Nigerian food market as it stands right now.
Yeah.
Is there a way forward for us as it stands as a country?
There's a lot of way for us, if we're going to fund the appropriate,
because there's no regulation when it has to do with food right now. In where the office is right now, we getting food items seems to be very high. You get to Nyanya, it's a bit friendly. You get to other part of Abuja, it's a bit high. So there is no regulation in terms of price. So I'm asking from the point of a consumer, is there hope for the Nigerian food market?
All right. So I run business in Rwanda. Rwanda has an agency called RURA, that's RURA, Rwanda Utility Regulatory Authority, that regulates price. So when you go to anywhere in Rwanda, the price of a kilo of meat is the same. So that means I don't need to stress myself to want to start going to work and get it more friendly, just like you've mentioned. However, in Nigeria, there are some we run our economy is too big, the population is too big, and there are some things that when it's been introduced from the presidency, a lot of people are going to see it from a different light. Like, okay, you're trying to attack our region. It's like you don't want our region to grow. We are the one that is producing. So how do you want it to be the same price? Do you know that we're going to transport it from this point to this other point? Then again, look at cost of logistics. Logistics, especially the fact that oil is going high. So we're going to be having this situation. So for this to be addressed properly, we need to address what actually caused the market shock. So when the president addresses the first subsidy issue, from that day till now, Nigeria has been experiencing market shock from every other side. So when we address our market shocks, insecurity, fuel, then the price of food will now be able to go down, because we're moving oil palm. We're moving oil palm from my village to Lagos. Before it used to be 1,500. Now I'm moving, that is per 20 liters, that is per jerry can. Now I'm moving that same thing for 4,500. So you cannot expect it to get what I'm going to get in my village now cheaper. Let me say as cheap as 35,000. When it gets to Lagos, it becomes, I think we're being told it's going to be 50,000 naira.
So, Dr. Emmanuel, you're saying that there is no hope for the Nigerian food
for
market
now, because of our production is not even still meeting with our demand. Until in economies, you need to see that there's supply, or until supply crushes demand. That is when there is hope.
So we can't plan, we can't make a budget for our food for the month.
Let me surprise you, sir, that most of these regions where agricultural activities are happening are where we have insurgencies, insecurity. This is also contributing to the market shock. Then we also now talk about fuel. As at yesterday, there's a new price of fuel. It was not decreasing, it was increasing. Now, for everything that gives a shock to the market, the end users, we consumers, you and I, get to be affected. So until we address those value chains, those chain of production, we cannot have hope. Not because we don't have the budget. I can tell you the fact. Okay, in Niger, for example, over 50% of Niger land is not still cultivated, even when they have the largest landmarks in Nigeria. Niger State is bigger than Rwanda in terms of landmarks. But we cannot still address our own food problem because we're not even cultivating enough. In Kogi State, over 50% of the arable land is not cultivated. We're not cultivating our land.
Just Kogi here.
Kogi State.
Well, Dr. Emmanuel Abusin, I really want us to have a very elaborate conversation on this agriculture, because I know viewers across the world right now are eager to know what's the impact of food market is affecting Nigerian economy in general, and what can we do to ensure that the economy gets better even from the price of people that are buying from the market. But I want to say thank you so much for finding our time to be with us this morning.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, this is how far we can go this morning. We want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show. I am Godwin Sunday. Do remember to follow us on all our social media platforms. Till I come your way again, from all of us here in the studio, it's bye for now.